Apothecary, Mary Elizabeth McCarry here on Saturday, the 24th of February, 2018. We are now going to be doing these video webinar series things on YouTube. If you are just joining us or will join us in the future, please do subscribe. There's a button below this video with a lot of information once I post it up regarding my website and how to reach me for different reasons. And also, if you do subscribe, click the little bell, and the little bell will send you an email. And if you do that, you will then get notices in your email regarding when we are doing these things and when we are live. I had been doing these on Facebook, and Facebook has changed its format, and it's just very difficult to use. And in the middle of several broadcasts, it just stopped. So I'm hoping that doing this on YouTube will be much better. I'm not charging for these classes. These are free classes open to the public. Anybody of any sort of degree or knowledge in these things is allowed to come to these. There's something that is kind of a common thing said in Wicca, that you should never charge to teach these things, so I try not to do that. I do, however, charge for other things, and I'll discuss those at the end of the broadcast or towards the middle of the broadcast, and what you can do to visit with me, have a reading with me, have me make spells for you, etc., etc. Who am I? Well, if you've seen my other videos, you may know who I am. I have been doing witchcraft work in the New York City area over 20 years now, studied with some of the best witches in the hood. So I have quite a good amount of education in this area. I have been writing blogs and running a sort of a store, both virtually and in person, for about 15 or so years too, making different kinds of spells based on my own knowledge, using herbalism as well, as that is a specific focus for me, as is other things like energy magic, such as things like Reiki, but also just regular energy magic, meditation, chanting. I use music. I use sound healing work. I use different kinds of ways to empower spells. I also create different kinds of ways to transport spells, meaning I don't just use incense and candles, but I use soaps and lotions and baths, and I make all these things totally organically and totally magically empowered for people to use. And I also like to teach people how to use their things. I don't believe that you can do magic without having a reason and understanding what's going on. So I'm going to flip over here, and I'm going to make sure that we are on the YouTube. Seems like we are. Okay, great. Hi, Brenda. Hi, Brenda. All right. So making sure everything is on and going. Say hello if you can see me and everything is good. So if you're on the chat and you can see me, please say hi, and I'd love to know it's all working and things are good here, because this is new to me, and I'm trying my best to figure it all out, and any kind of help you can give me would be great. So if you're there, I know that I see myself doing it, but I just don't know if you're there. Okay, anyway, let's see. Okay, I'm posting that also to Facebook so people can see it. It's going to be a little bumpy, and we'll do our best to make sure that it works. Okay. Just making sure. It's hard, this stuff. It's not easy to do, this live video stuff, because I don't think they want it to be easy for some reason. So here I am, live now. Now I can see myself. Okay, great. Y'all can see me, I hope. Anyway, I'm here. I'll send this up again so people can see it. And we are good to go. All right. So here's where I am now. And that's the stream. All right, so it took a few minutes to figure that out. And so here we are. All right. So we're going to go into this whole thing of what we're going to talk about hexes and what that means today, and how to deal with those. This might be more than one time. I apologize for looking as pale as I do. I have a very bad cold. It's the first time in a long time I've had a cold, which for me is a good thing because I have an autoimmune disease that stops me from having colds. And now I see my autoimmune disease maybe doing better because I am sick. Yay. All right, so there I am. Everything's up and ready to go. Just making sure. So that information is there. And this video is going to be up here on YouTube, and I'll share this on Facebook so that you can see it as well. And you can just check in anytime you want to and take notes and or ask questions. And you can ask me questions here on the YouTube, or you can write to me at the email address I'll post below, and I'll say it here. It's the magical, M-A-G-I-C-A-L, the magical apothecary, A-P-O-T-H-E, C-A-R-Y @gmail.com. And or you can go to my website and write to me there, or you can do it on Facebook or whatever way you want to reach me for any kind of questions that you might have regarding this work. Okay, so what is a hex? Let's get into this. Like, I started out this by saying on the description, like, watch out for gray magic. This is kind of gray magic. So what is gray magic? Let's start there, and then we'll go to hexes. Gray magic, some people consider magic to be very polar. It's like either it's very good and blessing kind of magic and healing or empowering, or it's not. It's negative and it's manipulative or harming, or, you know, what's another good word for it? Just twisting somebody's will against somebody's will. So that's not really enough for life, I think. I'm a very black and white person, and I've had many complaints about that in my life. So I do understand black and white thinking very much. But in the middle, there are a lot of things. And in the middle are kind of swampy things. And it's called gray magic, and or could be called bad luck, could be called harm, it could be called ill thoughts, it could be called protection. There's a lot of different ways. When I was first coming up as a witch, I was studying with different people, and they would all be doing gray magic. I had specifically one teacher who I won't name people when I talk about spells or anything like this. I'm not ever going to do that. By the way, it's all personal and private, as any reading would be, as any working is with me. So, but this particular person was burning a gray candle in particular because he wanted to do a specific thing that was considered gray magic. So it was a protection spell. And from that point on, I got to realize, because he was also my teacher, why and how you use these things. So let's talk about this. Gray magic, leave that on the side. What's a hex? People say hex. I've been hexed. I have a jinx. I have bad luck. I'm jinxed. I have bad mojo. These are all words that come from traditional magical thought. What is magical thought? Well, our ancestors didn't have scientific information we have today. So they knew there was energy, and they knew that energy moved. And they knew that sometimes their thoughts helped to move energy, and they saw these things. And they weren't sure why or how this happened, but they used it. And so it was called magic or hexing. Hex is a word that just means magical thought or spells. What's a spell? Let's go into that. And I've said this before in our spellcraft classes, and this is one of them. Spell is what? Spelling something out. Sit for a spell. I'm under your spell. What does this all mean? Well, it's a conjuring. It's a using words or using thought or using education or just using a physical form to make something a focus. So people use things like candles, say for example, to burn and to empower and to use oils on and draw pictures on. And when there are some very famous people out there making beautiful enchanted candles for people to use. There's a store in Manhattan, New York City, that does that specifically, and other people as well, like our friend Lady Rhea, who has a book out called The Enchanted Candle. So if you're interested in that work, she's the lady to go to for that. But if you are working with a physical thing, it helps you to concentrate your energy upon that. So spell. People used to use all kinds of things, and they still do, from sewing to knots to the simplest things like hair magic or using just incanting or carrying a picture or a talisman, a picture of a planetary symbol or a picture of a god or a goddess. Even wearing a cross, people wear crosses around their necks for protection, or hamsa hands, or any of these things. These are physical manifestation of will, or using something physical to manifest your will. And that's what a hex is, and that is what a spell is. Now, somehow over time, hex being 6. Now, I found this very interesting article, and I put it up on my apothecary site on on the Spellcraft site on Facebook. So that's in there for those of you that are in that Spellcraft group. And if you want to join that Spellcraft group, go ahead and just find me at the Magic Apothecary, MAGICK, that's it, on Facebook. And if you want that information and you can't find it, just email me and I'll send you links for wherever we are. But there's a group called Spellcraft on there, and that is where I feed this information from this kind of work that we're doing on the internet. So I have this, and I'm going to read some of this, which is very interesting because I found this on a site called The Mystica, and this was copywritten on in 2000. He's been writing for 20 years, and putting things up online. So this is a a magic site, I think. This is an article about hexing, and it says it's a word designated a witch's spell, which has long historic association with the connotation of the number 6, the Greek hex, which is interesting because the word hex, 6, hexagon, 6-sided, right? Cognate with the Egyptian 7, to embrace or copulate. Interesting. 6 almost universally represented the number of sex. 6 equaling sex, representing the union between the triple goddess and her trident bearing consort. Trident having 3, like a Neptune with his 3 forks, or any god with 3 pieces, morning, afternoon, and night, young child, mature man, sage, the triple idea. So 2 triples, triple goddess, triple god, 6. All right, so as they say, I don't know if this is true, but we can look this up, or you can look it up and tell me, because it's interesting to me. It says that Christian authorities labeled 6 the number of sin. Pythagoreans, on the other hand, called 6 the perfect number. So there's that. Hexagonal hex signs included the 6-pointed tantric yanta of love. The name of the sign comes from the Pennsylvania Dutch, who borrowed the word from the native German for witch, hexe, as well. All right, so onward. So hex, that's what a hex is. Hi, Brenda, I see you now. Thank you, I'm glad you joined me. Anybody else wants to come on in? Don't be afraid to say hi. I know some of you are from my classes that I've done live, and some of you are not, and that's fine. And if you do watch this, please just let me know you did, and give me a comment and tell me what you think, and share, please. This is free information that's not silly and actually very helpful, I hope. Anyway, so that's what we were talking about as far as a hex. So what is evil? That's another whole thing, and how people associate magic with evil and what evil spells are, or black spells or black magic. Really what it comes down to is a matter of morality. If you have decided to do a spell and it is going to harm someone, or someone's done that towards you, or if you're going to try to manipulate the will of someone else. A lot of people believe that love spells are black magic. If you don't have a person you know loves you and you're trying to manipulate them into doing so, that's considered black magic. Twisting the will against somebody's will, twisting their fate without their knowledge, that's considered black magic, and that's dark magic. Now, if you've been harmed, though, then that gets to be questionable. So we talk about, if someone has hurt you or someone you love, is it okay to harm them back? That's a moral choice. Everybody has that choice to make. Some people won't do it. Some people are very sure that karma will take care of all things. And in my experience in life, I've seen that happen over and over. But some people don't feel that way. Or some people have been so deeply harmed that they see no other way, and they feel like they need to protect themselves in some way. Thus, people do and have carried weapons throughout history for protection, and magic was used as a protective weapon. and can still be used that way. This is an entirely personal decision. When you decide to do something like this, it is entirely personal, whether or not you have your own reasons for whatever you're doing. That's your business. I'm not going to say to you it's good to do magic to really hurt someone's business or family or kill them. That's, to me, immoral. I try to follow the Wiccan Rede, which says, "And it harm none, do it thou wilt." Right? It's part of the Wiccan Rede anyway, the first part of it. So, am I harming this person? If I am, I may be incurring my own karma. If I say, well, this person in a hypothetical situation raped someone I love, or beat them, or stole from them, or something really bad, or is a criminal, or and it deserves to have their karma come back to them. If I say that, and I do my magic work, and they do get hit back with their own energy and or other energy, and things start to happen, I may be up for some karma myself. But that's a decision. I may be. I may not be. I may be evening the scales because this person has done such terrible things that it's like, okay, well, I'm just evening the scales. There are a lot of people who have been, and I'm not sure they still are because I didn't participate in it and I don't know much about it, but there were people who were trying to hex the president of the United States. Maybe they're being successful because the man's having a lot of trouble. But yeah, then they feel, these people, strongly that this person is harming our country, and so they feel that it's important to do something in magical form. That's their decision. Everything is about free will. We start talking about things like astrology or tarot readings or palmistry. You can be told by someone who's a good reader that things look like this is going to happen, or this is what you have as your fate. But you have a choice, always a choice. And with magic, you still have a choice. It's up to you, really. That's what I say. Like with anything else, if you decide to use a knife, then that's up to you also. Everything's up to you. We're all adults, and let's hope that we are, because if we're under 21, I don't think you should be doing any kind of dark magic at all. Maybe even more older than that, or protective magic. I think that if you're young and in an emotional state, I'm not saying that that's bad to be young and in an emotional state. I think it's fantastic, and I miss being that way. However, I still think it's better if you're working with a person who's a longer time practitioner, or a longer time on this planet. That's my opinion. I don't mean anything against anyone young. It's just, it takes a little bit of maturity to understand these things. These are not easy things. So that being said, if you decide to do any of this, I release myself from your karma. I am not part of it. I'm just a messenger, and I have nothing to do with what you do in any way, shape, or form. So mote it be. My own protective spell against anyone out there who might think I'm the one that's caused the problem, because I haven't. I'm just telling you what this is, and you can read more about it all over the internet and through books, all types of books. Amazon has tremendous amount of witchcraft books now and magic books now, so you can really immerse yourself. And if you can't afford stuff like that, there are sites like, where's this place? I have it right up here. I'll say it later. There's sacred text. Sacred text is a very huge site that has full books, full of magic, full of all kinds of esoteric knowledge. So if you're really wanting to read stuff for free, you can do that. And also Scribd, SCRIBD, which I think is like $5.99 a month. And you can just read to your heart's content anything you can find in there. So what I'm going to tell you is stuff that you can even find in the Bible. So this is just typical things, etc. So what is evil? Well, evil is harming someone for no good damn reason. And that's it, just breaking. That's why there were 10 commandments. All of those things are things that cause others harm, and that's evil. Causing harm was called evil. That's the word people used for it, evil. So what is evil? Are we being evil? Are we black magicians? Are we evil witches? Well, over time, people started to, for centuries, people have called anyone who took their power into their own hands a witch, and B, evil. So Yeah, maybe, you know, in the traditional sense of the word, you're breaking some kind of pact with major religions that don't believe in that kind of thing. But our ancestors did, and our female ancestors in particular did. The idea of a hex or hexe being a hag just meant a woman who was just mature. Hag was not always a bad word. These words have gotten to be bad over time. So I invite you to do your research. I invite you to look things up. Don't just rely on what I tell you. Look things up and learn as much as you can. And if I'm wrong or don't know something, tell me. Okay, so first thing I want to talk about is before you would want to do any kind of serious spell on anybody, you'd want to do what's called a binding or a binding spell. What's a binding spell? Well, if you think about it, what's binding? Well, it's wrapping something up. So first thing you want to do is say, let me see if I have anything going on first. Well, maybe I don't, but maybe I feel terrified, and maybe I'm very nervous, and maybe my very own energy is causing a lot of things to start to happen. So what I'll do is I'll bind the situation or my own thoughts. Easy to do. You're dealing with yourself. So you say, okay, what am I feeling? So say, all right, I feel like I have a lot of bad luck coming at me, and I know I have enemies, or I know I have people who don't necessarily like me, and I think that that person might be thinking bad thoughts about me. So what I would say you might want to do first is really meditate upon that, and if you can, get a reading done by a reputable card reader or an astrology reader, because it could be planetary influences that are causing you to feel that way. It could be your own health that's causing you to feel that way, your own mental health that's causing you to feel that way, or it could be, you know, just something that you're just not able to figure out at the moment. Something's happening and you're not sure. So what I say to do in that instance is to then write it out. Say, I really feel like this is happening to me, or speak it out with somebody you trust, and then try to bind those thoughts. Bind your own thoughts. How do we bind? Simple things to do. You can wrap them in cords. People like to use black threads or black shoelaces. You can write it out and wrap it up, roll it up, drip wax upon it, seal it in a jar with salt, which is a cleansing thing. Salt is, seal it. Seal your thoughts. Seal it in. Seal it in the freezer. Now we have freezers, right? So it's better than it was 600 years ago when people were binding and writing it down. So freeze them in a pan of water. You can get like a little, you know, Chinese soup takeout container, plastic container that's not being used, and you can put it in with a little water and freeze it. One of the best things to do. Freeze. Stop. You can bury them. That stops things too. And as the earth takes it, it'll start to disappear. So I start with you, because that's the person that's here. What are your thoughts? And why do you think this? Why do you feel this? What's happening? What are you seeing? Bind it. Freeze it. Wrap it. Bury it. First thing out. Before you start going and attacking other people, bind your own thoughts. And if that starts to work, and it will, and I would suggest you start to do that during the dark of the moon, which means the dark time of the moon, when it's waning, from when the moon is full to when it is new. Release it. Get it out of your system. Put it down. This way, you can think a little clearer about what is the thing you need to do next. I just keep a black candle on my altar 99.9999999% of the time, just to remove everything. I feel like it's an air filter. I have one of those too for my cats. So it's like just cleaning the energy. Just keep cleaning the energy. Keep cleaning your own energy. You can do that too. You can get a nice black candle. I use a really big one, and you just keep it going and keep it going and keep it going and keep removing and removing and removing anything that's coming at you from yourself or anywhere else that might harm you. Certainly, that's not enough in some instances, and we'll go to the next step. So we're talking about what causes people to hex someone. I mean, what's that? Now, when I was younger and I was just starting out in witchcraft, there was all these things called witch wars in New York City. I was like, what is this? Well, people were fighting for power within the city itself. There's not that many witches left in New York City anymore. There's not that many anything that's interesting left in New York City, but That's my opinion. But anything like this is sort of underground or has disappeared to a great extent, because really you can't be a witch and pay the rent that's in New York City. You can't live on witchcraft. So there's one of the reasons. But there were a good amount of people having a good amount that had a good amount of witchcraft stores. There were, like, as far as I remember, 6 or 7 pretty major ones, and that's what would cause these wars. People wanted the money, they wanted to make a living, they wanted to be the witch of New York City. Well, that's kind of impossible in the city to be the anything. So people would throw magic at each other, and people would say, yes, she's throwing magic, or he's throwing magic at me, and I'm going to protect myself. It got to be quite the thing in the 90s. A lot of that came from the movie The Craft, so there's that too. So a lot of it came from a little bit too much drama and a little bit too much Hollywood, and so it bubbled up. But in the process, I got to learn a lot of things about this, which was kind of cool. One of the things you want to do, again, is say, like, I've cleaned my slate. I feel like I've got my mind around this and my spirit around this, and I don't think I'm bringing this towards myself. Let me get another reading, or let me redo a reading of my own, and let me see what this objective party might see and or tell me or might hear, and let me go from there. So before you do any spell, by the way, at all, in any way, you should be doing some sort of divination. Should I do this spell? You can use a pendulum. I got one over here somewhere. You can use a pendulum to swing your answers. Oh, buried somewhere. Here is a pendulum. I don't know if you can see it. I use this all the time when I'm doing my work, and any kind of work. And these are easy to find on the internet. I got this one in a store, and this is just a beautiful green crystal on a lovely chain, and that's all it is. It's very simple. You can use a ring on a piece of thread also, and you can just write yes or no, or you can use a Ouija board, or you can tell the pendulum, listen, this means yes, whatever you choose. This means yes, and say this means no. And then you ask it a question, and you see what comes. Should I put the spell on? Should I burn this candle? Do I have a hex? Am I being jinxed? Yes and no. If you can read cards, look to do a yes or no spread. If you can't read cards, hire somebody to read your cards. A1. Important. Look at your astrology. Make sure that things are clear before you do any spell. I've done spells that were pretty serious in my past, and I have always gone and said, well, what is going to happen if I do this spell? That's what you need to know. What's going to happen if I do this? Should I do this? What happens if I do this? Okay, so please heed that. Talking about why people would throw things at you. That's what they call it. You're throwing a spell. You're throwing energy, really. You're taking a ball of energy, and that is either for lots of reasons. People and all these other classes that are here on YouTube and on Facebook are about all these different kinds of spells people can and do, for money, for love, for fame, for whatever. So we're doing this to protect. We're doing this to remove. This is a cleansing thing. This is protection. But why would somebody do this? Why would somebody throw a spell? Why would, as I said before, during witch wars, one is throwing spells at the other, who's throwing them back and forth like snowballs. Sort of like Harry Potter gone crazy. So why? Well, envy. Envy is the number one reason. The envy is supposed to be the A1 worst of the 7 deadly sins. Sloth, rage, wrath, pride, those sins. So if envy is the worst, then envy is the reason. So if somebody is really disliking you or causing a problem, or you feel like there's something going on, like you have a lot of bad luck, or are you really sure after you've done your divination that there's a spell being thrown at you, find out why someone might be envious. Now, when I was growing up, and I'm half Italian, my grandmother, who was a strega, or the daughter of a strega, truly believed in something called, in Sicilian, the malocchio, or the malalocchio, the bad eye, the evil eye. Okay, so there are people all over the world that still believe in this, of course, that somebody could harm with just an eye, with just a jealous eye, with just a bad look. They could harm you. And that sounds crazy, but it makes sense, because if somebody is very, very jealous and their thoughts are very, very pointed towards you, they can harm you. They can harm you. If you say, why is saying God damn it, why is that a curse? Well, it's a curse because you're taking the name of a deity and saying you should be damned. That's why it's a curse. You're throwing harm at someone. Or, even the words like fuck you, you should drop dead. All those things are curses. And those are things that are hexes, curses, because behind them is anger, jealousy, passion of some sort with words, a spell. Words are spells, spelling out your desire. Simple as that. How does one then deal with this? This could be everywhere, of course. And the more, like right now, I put myself out on the internet, I could be making somebody upset and they could want to curse at me and harm me. Okay. Every time you walk into a door, every time you walk into a coffee shop, every time you walk into the grocery store, every time you leave your home, every time you're in your home, even in your own home now, we don't have that much safety where we're protected and there's nobody looking at us. We're on Facebook, we're on Twitter, we're on, Instagram, we're all over the place. People can see us and know us and hear about us. I can look up people's, criminal records or pasts, or I can find their addresses online. It's crazy. There's no privacy anymore. So we're constantly in this state. And perhaps that's why this has gotten, I think, a little bit worse. So first things first, binding yourself. We still go back to that. Let's go to the next thing. Binding another. So we're pretty sure, say at this point, you've done your divination, you've looked at your astrology, you've asked for advice, you've cleansed your own conscience, and you're pretty sure there's something going on. Okay, great. First things first, bind them. Because if somebody's actually, imagine this, imagine if somebody's throwing an arrow at you, or a spear, or a bullet, and you could stop it. Well, you can. You can't stop a bullet or a spear, but you can stop energy thoughts. You can stop energy coming your way. You can put up a shield. So first things first, I've cleansed my own mind. I'm pretty sure I've bound myself from these crazy thoughts. I think they're crazy. I've bound the energy around them, and it's not that. Okay. It's something else. It's coming from somewhere else. I sense this. I feel this. I see the proof. I've seen it in my readings. I know this is true. Okay. Bind the energy. Same thing I said before. Write down the name of the person who you think is causing you the problem, if that is the case, and or write down what's happening. I'm having money trouble and I can't seem to make a living. Bind that. Freeze it. Freeze that. I may be losing my job. Freeze that. My boss doesn't like me. Freeze it. Any way you like. Like I said, you can write it out, roll it up, little black wax, bury it in a jar, put it in a jar, put it in some salt, bury it, get it out of your system, get it away from yourself, put it in the freezer, put it away. I've had people actually write things on toilet paper and flush these things away. Anything you can use symbolically to get it out of your system, get it away from you, and freeze it tight. People can wrap, and we'll get into how you wrap a poppet in a few minutes. Wrap any kind of thought in threads, which are magically empowered. You can use oils, which we've discussed multiple times in these classes, different kinds of oils. You can we'll talk about making an oil in a minute or two, about how that comes along. But that's the first thing. So bind. There are different types of binding spells, but I will get to those later. I have one in particular that I love, and we'll talk about how that one works in a minute. So also, what I would say go to is baths. Like, sounds silly, but not. If we talk about cleansing your body, first start with your mind, then the body, and then the spirit. So the body. So we will find a way to get in a bath or in a shower and use herbs that can be herbs that are cleansing. And what are those kinds of herbs? Well, there's lots of those, but some of them can be toxic, and we won't talk about those for a bath. But stuff like lavender is well known to cleanse. It's an antibiotic, actually, lavender. Lavender oil is good for you, and if you put that into a soak, or put a couple of drops into some Epsom salts or regular table salt and/or baking soda, and just put that into your bath water, that can help you to release some of the things that you're feeling. Also, you can sage your body with sage smoke. You can buy sage sticks online, or in magical supply stores, and you can learn to use those. White sage, different kinds of sage bundles, different kinds of meanings. But most of the time, people that are making sage bundles are using things like pine or fir, and all of those things and all of those essential oils and herbs are good for cleansing. As you go on, and certainly you don't want to soak in garlic, but garlic is one of the A1 herbs you go to for removing spells, as is salt. But I don't think you want to soak in garlic, but you can use garlic to protect yourself. You can use garlic in your cooking to protect yourself, and you can use hot pepper, any kind of hot, peppery kind of ginger, mustard, red pepper. All of those things are known to repel. So why? I do this whole thing where I try to do an herb as often a day as I probably can. I don't do it every day, but I do it as often as I can. So I look at herbs that our ancestors used for certain things, like general things like cooking or just general healing things. And then I look at the science behind them briefly, and then I say, well, our ancestors were using it because blank blank. So when our ancestors knew that there was bacteria, they didn't know it was bacteria. They knew things were in food, and they would add spice, and they would add spice when they were sick to all sorts of things and drink it. Actually, chai tea is a great example of that. Indian cooking, or cooking in the southeast, which is very spicy. Thai food is laden with spice because of the warmth and the growth of bacteria that they thought was evil. Bacteria being the evil spirit that would infect them. They didn't have science. They didn't know to look through a microscope. They didn't know what was going on. They just thought it was evil, bad, bane. So they'd use these spices, and today they still work the same way, both in the body and in the mind and in the senses. So I would not get into a bath with anything hot like pepper or garlic, but I would certainly use that in my food if I felt that I was being hexed. And I would also probably use that in my jar if I'm putting in the perpetrator. I think that John Smith, whoever is hexing me, I'm going to put him in my jar, and I'm going to put pepper in there, and I'm going to put garlic in there. I'm going to seal him up. That's him. There he is. He's in there. He can't get out. Fast, quick binding spell. Baths can be, like I said, things that are like lavender, which is antibiotic. You can soak in that if you're not allergic to flowers. If you're allergic to flowers, please don't use lavender. I said it. Okay, so there's other ways to go, and if you want more information, just write to me and I'll tell you. So, baths. Then we're going to use our environment. Again, sage, incense. You can blend an incense, and in an incense you could use pepper if you really want that, but you could use lavender, sage, grind that together, burn that on a charcoal carefully, not in a fireproof dish, and you can cleanse your area as well. Another way to do it that's really fast and kind of more safe in a way is to use an aromatherapy diffuser, and that's just water and a couple of drops of essential oils, and you have the same thing going on. You can create a cologne or perfume. Cologne is just some essential oils in water and perfumer's alcohol or vodka. You can use 100 proof vodka. You just have to shake it up a lot and not get the vodka smell everywhere. Although vodka doesn't smell that bad. But perfumer's alcohol is available, and there's lots of places to get it. Just look back in the spellcraft information, and you can get the whole list of where to find things, and it's also on the Facebook group. So perfumer's alcohol, or you can just make a strong perfume, or you can make a solid perfume, and we've gone through those, how to make those. And again, if you want more information, just write to me and I will direct you into the right place within the series here to learn how to make that, because I've talked about that before a lot of times. So if you wanted to make your own perfume with these different kind of protective herbs, and you can do more research for yourself. You can say, I really like rose oil. Does that protect? Well, yes, it does to some extent. So you can make your own mixtures and you can wear those. Again, as long as you're not allergic to these things, it'd be fine. We said baths, but I do create soaps, and soap is an easy way to move magic. You can make a protective removal soap. I made one with black salt. Not that that's the best thing for my skin or anybody's, but it's black and it's salt. And I like to say, okay, this is, I've made it for myself for cleansing away any kind of bad juju that I might have accumulated throughout my day. If I feel like it's there, I use that soap. If I want to do protective work, that's another whole story. So right today we're talking about removing hexes, and we'll talk a little bit about protection, and then I'm going to do a whole nother one on protection because I think it's just too big to do in one day. Okay, so we talked about readings, meditation. We talked about all these kinds of ideas, making sure. We talked about removing stuff from your mind, your own mind, and getting your mind clean around the idea of what's going on. And now we talked about your body, using inside drinks or spices to cleanse inside, outside. Again, if you're feeling like I'm getting sick or something is being thrown at me, it's time to really reevaluate certain things, like look at your diet, add certain things to your diet, get to an herbalist and see if there's something you can use that makes you stronger. Our ancestors did that. They quote hags, hexes, witches, were people you'd go to not just for spells, because that was so simple. It was more for health. And you go to someone like me, who's an herbalist and a witch, and you'd say, hey, I don't feel so great, and I feel run down. And that person would be able to walk you through what's going on mentally, physically, spiritually, maybe do a reading for you, and then give you herbs and meditations and ideas to take you forward. So when you come here, you're really kind of walking into the wise woman's cave. That's what I should call this. This is the cave of the wise woman. Isn't it weird that I don't have like 3 eyes and long black hair? Whatever. Silly, silly. All right. Anyway, so let's talk about talisman. What's a talisman? Well, a talisman is just like anything. I have them all over my body, actually. These are considered talismans. These are symbols, the symbols that you can carry. I wear them on my skin. You don't have to. Or you can wear necklaces. Again, I said something about people wearing crosses or hands of Hamza, the Hamza hands, or people wear cornudo horns, or Chimaruta, the Italian hand of the rue. By the way, let's not discount rue. Put rue down, R-U-E, as a real great protective herb. Forgot rue. Got to use rue. Rue is fantastic. But don't eat it. No. And don't bathe in it. But it's really good for anointing candles, anointing other things as well. So we'll get to that in a minute. But anyway, that's what a talisman is. I'm carrying something on me, and it is the thing that's going to protect me. That's a talisman. And on a talisman are protective sigils. S-I-G-I-L, sigil. Interesting word, but it just means a symbol, really. Again, there are planetary sigils. There are sigils that represent herbs, represent people, represent deity, represent power. And that's a whole book in and of itself. So I can't get into it deeply here on the internet in 5 minutes. But if you're interested, again, get in touch with me. And I do have ideas and books and places that you can research that, sigil magic. And that's a lot of that tied up to Aleister Crowley, and also tied up to the art of high magic. That's a little different than what we're talking about today, but it's definitely something you can add to your magical practitioner's bag. Sigils. Again, I said tattoos. People do that a lot now to protect themselves. They have all kinds of symbols on their body. I feel like that works really, really well. But that's my decision, not everybody's decision. Makeup. How interesting. Makeup, yes, if you wear makeup for whatever reason, you can make your own makeup, or you can use makeup you already have. Lipstick or rouge or eyeshadow or something, anything you want to wear. Even nail polish. Red nail polish is protective, by the way. That's one of the reasons, not just because it's sexy and pretty, but people wore it to protect their hands. All right, so red nail polish. Red lipstick can be empowered. You can just empower your lipstick, your own lipstick that you have in your purse or in your bag, and you can empower that and wear that. It could be lip gloss. It could be lip anything. You can protect yourself that way. That's one way to think about magic with makeup, laying on of something, energy, and how we empower these things. I use the word empower, and I've said this before in all of my videos. You're actually writing out what you want, chanting what you want, laying hands upon the object, and putting your energy into that object. So again, go back into the past videos, subscribe here below, and take a look at what's going on. Again, I am always available for questions, because I wouldn't be teaching if I didn't want to answer questions. So empowering them in the name of a god or a goddess, empowering them in the name of some other deity, some other force of energy. It could be Jesus Christ. A lot of people use Jesus Christ in their magic because they feel very attached to him and they really believe in him and they really want his energy in their working. And there is nothing wrong with that at all in any way, shape, or form. Or God, Yahweh, as we know him, or the goddess herself, or anything. You can ask the moon to empower your work, whatever feels good to you. So that's it. We said incense. You can, as I said, you can create your own incense. You can also buy incense that's made for protection. And if it smells good to you and it makes sense to you and you like it, go ahead and do it. Just be careful how you burn things. Don't leave things burning in your home. Don't leave candles on when you're sleeping. And don't leave anything lit when you leave your house. That's my A1 most important thing. People used to say that you have to leave candles burning no matter what. I disagree entirely. You can snuff out a candle gently with a candle snuffer, and then when you come back into your home, you can relight your spell. And just know that when you're away, the spell is still working. It just takes longer to burn if you're not there. It's fine. And by the way, it doesn't matter if you started a full moon spell and we've gone into the dark of the moon again and then back into the full. It's fine. As spells roll on, you will realize how they change based on the planetary energies around you. So there's that. You can just, like I say, call on deity for protection. Some people believe in Hindu gods and goddesses. Some people believe in Buddhist work. Some people believe in whatever they believe in. And you can always call on deity for protection. And if you really feel like you have a deity that does protect you, that's all around you all of the time, then that's the one you want to call on the most. There's there's a whole bunch of magic work there are several different kinds of folk magic work that's done in the United States and all around the world. So in America, we have many choices. We have Wicca, which is where I'm coming from. We also have Santeria, and we have Voodoo, which is like voodoo or voodoo, or hoodoo. Now, all those things have different kinds of ways to protect yourself. So if you're interested in branching out into different kinds of folk magic, remember many of these come from Africa, and they're African-based religions, as there are Native American protective spells, and those are Native American-based. And I ask you please to be respectful when you use them. If you do use them, go to a great practitioner and pay for their services and learn, and don't steal work from another culture and own it as your own. I'm European, thus I am Wiccan. So there's that. But I do dip my pen into other places. I have studied Santeria. I have studied Stregaria because I'm half Italian, and I do work in Celtic magic because I'm half Irish. But I have looked into Santeria, hoodoo, voodoo, and other types of things. And that I'm like, well, I can learn from all, and I will. But I will never say that I am an expert in those places because it's not in my heritage. So there's that. One of the things I did get from hoodoo, which I thought worked very well, was something called a hot foot spell. Now, you can make your own hot foot spell, or you can go and buy them. There's one place called Lucky Mojo online, Lucky Mojo, and she is a big expert on hoodoo and has a humongous website and full of information. So you can just buy these spells, sometimes ready-made from her, if you're interested in root working and American folk. It's actually a lot of it's slave magic, African magic. So I've used this and it works really well. So this removes somebody from your life real quick. They get out real fast. And you can make your own hot foot idea by using pepper. If somebody's in your life, say in your house, who's harming you or someone you love, putting pepper in their shoes, not in a way that can harm them, but that they don't even know is there, is a way to get rid of them. You can also use powders. People make powders with certain herbs in them. They could use peppers and garlics and salts ground up really finely in a rice powder or in a cornstarch, and that can be laid where the person might walk across it, or it could be put in their shoes. You can use it in a little sack and put it tiny little bit in their drawer or in their closet, so that energy gets all over them and they get out. If someone's harming you and you need to get out, then you need to get out. So you need to get out, and that would be the first thing too. If someone's harming you, you need to find a way to get out, find a way to be free, and also get them away from you as fast as possible. So that's an idea for a spell. A lot of people talk about puppets. What's a puppet? Well, a puppet is not a puppet, but a puppet is a puppet. That's crazy, but it's true. So a poppet is a small doll-shaped thing. Looks almost like a lot of people make them like gingerbread men, and they fill them up with, you can fill one up with herbs and hair, nails, and you can actually empower this thing to become the person or the object you need to protect yourself from. If you want to remove someone, you can use black cloth, or if you want to impassion someone, then you use red, but we're not talking about that today. But so you could use black to get them away, and you can use a picture of them, you can use their name, if you have their birthday, you can add that in to this poppet, and you can empower this poppet to be that person. And in this case, you keep it under your control. You can freeze it, you can bind it, you can bury it, you can remove it. One of the things with poppets, though, don't let people find them, because they really look like witchcraft to people, and they really freak people out. Unless you want to freak somebody out, I'd say hide your poppets. And if you have an object in your house, a person in your house who you're trying to remove them from your life, I wouldn't have poppets lying around. And no, I'm not asking you to stick needles in them and harm them. That's a different kind of a magic. We're talking about binding. And yeah, you could if you wanted to do that. And as I said earlier, you can do what you want. But if you feel like you want retribution and you want to harm somebody, that's a good way to do it. Your decision. Jar spells. I keep saying put stuff in jars, put stuff in jars. Well, a jar is a container. Any kind of jar, can, coffee can, empty coffee can, any kind of a container. People use shells. People use socks. People use poppets. People use anything. A container, okay, box. So you can make spells in jars, which are really powerful. I find jar spells to be great. People make, there's these balls, they come from fishing, and people call them witch balls. And the reason they call them witch balls is because they were empty. Like they're like buoy balls made of glass. And I have one, and many witches have them. They sell them in the witchcraft stores, but they're sealed. But if you're just going to want to, you can get a pretty jar that hangs. It's really up to your creativity, as I've said through so many of these talks. And you can fill this jar with whatever protective herbs and oils and paper and color and glitter and candles and bits that you want to put into it. Don't put candles in with paper. Should have said that. So anyway, fill your jar with your protective herbs, with your banishing herbs, and you can then put either your poppet into that, or the person's name into that, or the situation into that, and seal it. Okay, so we said that's a jar spell. Binding ladders are just really rope spells. They're just knot spells, and you can just tie. You can get a piece of, say, for this instance, you want to remove something from your life that's harming you. You can tie knots into this ladder, and with each knot, you can actually, sometimes people will put a petition in each knot. You can write out, I want to be free from this bad luck, tie that into I want to be free from this person, tie that, I want to be free from, tie this into this knot. And people will actually wear those. You can make jewelry that does that for yourself with special stones. In this case, I would use black. Any kind of black stone might work. People use just plain old quartz crystals. A lot of the times, quartz crystals are sort of the way to empower and energize every single spell, or any spell you might want to do. But you can use them for protection as well. People use a lot of the time black amethyst, which is a pretty powerful way to cleanse and protect yourself. You can wear those. You can use those. You can put them on a necklace. And with each stone, you're empowering each stone to protect you and to raise your energy and to keep people away from you. You can use rings also on your hands to protect yourself. So there's all those ways to go with stones and to go with the ladder. I was thinking of the ladder because you can actually, you're tying in knots. And as you're tying in a crystal or a jewel or a gem, you can tie in your intention. Tie it in. Very important. I was at a very crazy ritual many years ago, very, very disturbing ritual, and ended up leaving. But before I did, I learned a really great thing. She had warned us that this was going to be a pretty scary ritual and that we should protect ourselves. So here's what she told us to do. She told us to ground ourselves. You can do this too. You can close your eyes and feel your feet on the floor and grounded down into the earth. Your energy coming through your body, through your feet. And then you want to draw up energy from the earth herself, and you want to make a sort of sphere around yourself, sort of like an egg around yourself, all the way underneath your feet and above your head and on all sides. And what you want to do with that also is you want to have inside to be mirrored. So you're protecting yourself and nothing but your own self is bouncing back at you. Mirror the inside of your sphere and then mirror the outside of your sphere as well. So nothing is coming in. And when you do this, you might feel like a real cool energy start to happen. As a matter of fact, I just did now, even talking about it. And I'm on my own energy. I have my own energy. And I'm repelling all other energy. So that's a great way if you're feeling threatened in a situation, in a group situation, out in public situation. You can sort of make yourself, not sort of, but totally make yourself invisible. That's an invisibility spell. And it works pretty well. So give that a try when you're starting to think about this kind of thing. Also, people work on closing the holes. I mean, in other words, any hole in your body is a place for entry for bad energy. If you think about our ancestors and illness as well, they were right. The nose, the ears, the eyes, right? The mouth, where do we get sick? Things get in there. So you want to close down those holes to energy from all of them. That means for women, your nipples, men, also your nipples, the belly button, your urethra, your anus, and your vagina if you're a woman, and any piercings. You want to close those down in your mind. You don't want to go around closing things. Literally, you want to mentally seal. So that's another way to work on stuff. Toilet paper spell. I said something about it, but there's a more vicious one. If somebody's really bugging you, just write their name and use it. Write their name on your toilet paper and use it. Enough said. Also, when you're doing these kinds of protective spells and binding spells, I think that it's very important to make your own spell for yourself. So you can make your own self a jar, as I said before, and put your own name inside of that and put protective verbs in that and seal it and keep it. And you can also make what they call a lamp. You can either put a little, you can make a jar that's just like that, and you can put a little a candle or a tea light or a votive on top of that, and you can burn that. And so you keep empowering the jar. Also, you can make a honey spell or a sugar spell for yourself. I had a friend make me a sugar spell many, many years ago, and it was one of the best spells ever. She put it in something she called angel's sugar, which was vanilla and sugar, and smelled really good. It's something people put in their tea as well. And she put my little name in there, and I would shake that whenever I had troubles, and it worked for a very long time. So that's just a way for you to do that for yourself, for your children, for people you love, and protective magic. You can do protective magic for anyone you love. And also, I wouldn't, by the way, don't do any magic unless you tell people you're doing that. I think it's kind of unethical to kind of do magic. People assume like you're married to them, or you're living with them, or you love them, or they're children. They assume that you're going to pray for them or protect them. That's a little bit different than just your coworker. If you want to do protective work for your coworker, I think you ought to ask, because otherwise you're now attaching yourself to their karma. Like I said to you before, I am not attached to your karma. It's your business. All right, so I have something I call urine spell. I'm not going to tell you what it is, and I'm not going to tell you specifics. So if you want information on spells I make that are quite powerful, or want one, you need to get in touch with me, because there's just so much I'm giving away for free. Okay, so I do make spells. I make soaps. As I said, I've made lotions. I make candle spells. I do carve candles. I can make mojo bags. I've made poppets. I make everything that you could ever want. I can make it for you. Some people feel like they don't want to do it themselves. That's fine. I'm here for you to do that for you, and I'm also here as a reader. Been reading since I'm 13, and I'm not 13 anymore. So it's been like 40 years of reading. So I was trained by my grandmother, who was trained by her mother, who was a strega. I read palms, I read astrology, and I'm an astrologer, as well as an herbalist, an aromatherapist. I'm a sound healer. I'm a Reiki master. So I have pretty serious resume and a very powerful with my magic, and I know for sure, it's almost time to go, I know for sure my magic works. So if you want to make an appointment to speak to me, to have a consultation with me, I am available anytime. Just get in touch with me via email. It's at themagicapothecary@gmail.com, or you can go to my website, or you can go to my Facebook groups and check me there. All right, so I'm going to say that's it for the day. That's a lot of information. So I like to throw things out there. Again, just please try to harm no one unless you really feel you have to do such a thing in order to preserve yourself, your family, or friends. I don't want anybody harmed. I don't want any karma to come back to me, and I don't want any karma to come back to you. So I want you to have a wonderful day, many blessings, and light surround you and yours. And may I see you again in the future. And please do share, feel free to share this video and ask questions and do whatever you need to do to learn your magic and be great at it. And many blessings. Have a good night.